Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're diving into the world of AI again today. Get ready, because things are about to get really interesting as we explore the ethical side of artificial intelligence.
You got it. We're dissecting an episode of Tech Talk Nexus today to uncover what lies beneath the surface of all the AI hype.
And there's a lot of it these days.
Yeah.
But we're not just talking about robots taking over the world, at least not today.
Right.
It's more about how AI is already shaping our lives in ways we might not even realize. Healthcare, job hunting, even your social media feeds.
Exactly. It's about recognizing AI's significant impact on our daily lives and understanding what that means for all of us.
And something that really got me thinking in this Tech Talk Nexus episode was the whole ethical AI thing.
Okay.
I'll admit, at first I thought, oh great, another buzzword. But then they gave this real-life example and it really hit home. Imagine an AI system helping doctors diagnose patients. Sounds amazing, right? Potentially life-saving even.
Absolutely. But what if that system was trained on data that, let's say, underrepresented certain demographics or missed certain diagnoses because the information was incomplete?
Okay, yeah, that would be bad.
And this isn't just a theoretical concern. There are real cases of facial recognition software, the kind used by law enforcement, misidentifying people because of flaws in the data it was trained on.
That's a scary thought, especially with how important facial recognition is becoming for security and, like you said, law enforcement.
Exactly.
The consequences could be really serious.
It shows just how important it is to make sure the data used to train these systems is comprehensive, unbiased, and really reflects the diversity of the people it will be used to assess.
It's like you wouldn't want to teach a kid with outdated textbooks.
Right.
They might learn something, but are they getting the full picture?
Right.
And it seems like AI learns at warp speed, so those consequences, the good and the bad, could be magnified.
Right.
They actually used facial recognition as a prime example of this.
Yeah.
Apparently, there have been much higher error rates for people of color.
That's because the data sets used to train those systems often don't accurately represent those populations or don't include enough variation. Basically, the AI is just mirroring the biases that are already present in the data it learns from.
That is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. It's like we've created this super fast learner, but it's picking up some of our bad habits along the way. But hey, at least it kind of highlights our own flaws in a funny way, right?
Well, I can appreciate the humor in that. The good news is that we're not powerless here. There are ways to mitigate these biases.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Tech Talk Nexus highlighted the importance of things like using diverse data sets, doing rigorous testing, and constantly monitoring AI systems.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Exactly. It has to be an ongoing process of refining and adapting.
Got it. So we've talked about bias, but what about all that data AI needs? That's got to have implications for our privacy, right?
Absolutely. That's a crucial aspect.
We're not just talking about some random numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking faces, medical histories, online activity. It's basically our lives, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It gets very personal very quickly. And Tech Talk Nexus drove that point home with a very relatable example. Social media algorithms. Think about how these platforms seem to know exactly what to show you, what ads to target you with, even who to suggest as friends.
It's kind of freaky sometimes how well they seem to know me, even better than I know myself, maybe. It's both fascinating and a little unnerving.
Right.
Like, who's really in control here?
That's the core of the privacy debate, isn't it? How do we balance the benefits of AI personalized experiences, increased security, advancements in medicine, with the potential downsides of constant data collection and the risk of that data being misused?
It's a tough question. Where do we even draw the line?
That's where Tech Talk Nexus argues that clear regulations become crucial. It's about having rules for how data can be used, making sure AI decision-making is transparent, and holding developers accountable for what they create. Basically, establishing the rules of the road for how AI interacts with our lives.
Okay, so speaking of rules of the road, this whole thing about AI being in control, making decisions, it kind of freaks me out. That Tech Talk Nexus episode really got into AI autonomy, and it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. It's one of the biggest ethical and practical challenges we're facing with AI. As these systems become more independent, it gets harder to pinpoint who's responsible for what. They used a great example, a self-driving car accident.
Right. If a self-driving car crashes, who's to blame? The programmer, the company that made the car itself.
Exactly.
It's like, who do you even hold accountable in that situation?
Right. It raises all sorts of questions about Liability, legal accountability, and what it even means to be at fault when machines are making decisions that affect people's lives.
And this isn't just about self-driving cars, right?
Right.
Think about AI in healthcare or finance or even military applications.
Right. The stakes can be incredibly high.
And to make it even creepier, TikTok Nexus mentioned this black box problem, where even the people who create these AI systems might not fully get how they're making decisions. It's like we're handing over the reins to something we don't fully understand. That's a pretty scary thought.
And that's exactly why the idea of explainable AI is so important. It's about building AI that can actually explain its reasoning in a way we can understand.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Think of a doctor using AI to diagnose patients. They need to understand why the AI is making a particular recommendation so they can trust it, explain it to the patient, and ultimately make the final call as the doctor.
It's like that trust fall exercise, but with life or death consequences. You really need to trust that the AI is making the right call, but you can't do that if you don't understand how it's getting there.
Exactly. It all comes down to building trust and accountability into these AI systems. It's not just about making sure the AI is doing the right thing. It's about giving us the ability to understand, intervene if needed, and course correct.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about bias, privacy, accountability, but what about the big one that's always looming in the background? Robots coming for our jobs.
Chuckles. Yes, the classic fear of job displacement. It's understandable, especially with how fast AI is advancing. And TikTok Nexus didn't shy away from that fear. They acknowledged that AI-driven automation has the potential to really shake things up across entire industries.
It's like a sci-fi movie cliche, right? Robots take over the factories, then the offices, and then... Yeah, well, you get the picture. It's hard not to feel a little anxious about that.
Of course, and those fears are valid, but I think it's important to remember that it's probably not going to be this simple humans versus robots situation. The reality is likely to be a lot more complex than that.
So it's not necessarily about robots taking our jobs completely, but about the nature of work changing, maybe even leading to entirely new jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
Exactly, and this is where human qualities like creativity, adaptability, and critical thinking come into play. Instead of replacing us entirely, AI could free us up to focus on more strategic and creative tasks. Just imagine the potential for innovation.
So instead of fearing AI, maybe we should be thinking about how we can work alongside it to boost our own skills and expertise.
Precisely. It's about collaboration, not competition. Remember what happened when the calculator was invented? It didn't replace mathematicians. If anything, it helped them tackle even more complicated problems.
That's a good point. So maybe the real question isn't, will AI take my job? But how can I learn to thrive in an AI-driven world?
Exactly. And that often involves continually learning and gaining new skills. TikTok Nexus made a big deal about how important education and retraining will be as the job market changes. It's about equipping ourselves with the tools to succeed in a world where humans and AI work together.
Which brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to ethical AI.
Yeah.
If we're going to embrace AI, we need to make sure it's developed in a way that benefits all of us.
100%. It's about ensuring that the future of work is one where AI helps us reach our full potential as humans, not the opposite. And that requires continued conversation, ethical frameworks, and a commitment to using AI for good.
That's a powerful message to end on.
It's interesting. We've been talking about AI like it's this separate thing, like it's this other, we need to figure out how to handle.
Like it's some kind of alien species or something.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality is it's a reflection of us, our own creativity, our goals.
Okay, that's a good point. It's like looking in a mirror. But the reflection is learning and growing at super speed. But if AI is a reflection of us, does that mean it inherits our, shall we say, less desirable traits too? I mean, we've already talked about bias and data sets.
Right.
But are there other potential downsides we should be thinking about?
Definitely. And TikTok Nexus actually brought up a few other areas where we need to tread carefully with AI development. One that stood out to me was the whole issue of unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. Okay, now you've got my attention. What are we talking about here? Give me an example.
Sure. Let's say you have an AI system designed to make traffic flow better in a city.
Okay, sounds great so far.
Right. Less congestion, quicker commutes.
Sign me up. I'm so over rush hour.
Right. But here's where those unintended consequences can pop up. What if, in trying to be super efficient, the AI starts routing traffic away from certain neighborhoods?
Oh, no. Like, say, lower income areas that the AI decides aren't as important to keep traffic flowing smoothly through.
Exactly. Or maybe it starts prioritizing autonomous vehicles over public transportation, which could really hurt people who rely on buses or trains.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. It's like those ripple effects you see in time travel movies. One small change ends up having all these crazy consequences.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to think about the big picture with AI development. We can't just focus on the immediate goal. We have to try to anticipate those potential ripple effects and make sure AI solutions aren't making existing inequalities worse or creating new ones.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do you even begin to predict all of those potential consequences? It seems impossible.
It's definitely a challenge, and there's no easy answer. But Tech Talk Nexus talked about how important it is to have people from different fields working together on AI development.
Okay, so not just the computer science people, but also
Right. You want ethicists, sociologists, economists.
people who understand how this stuff can play out in the real world.
Exactly. And you need input from diverse communities, too. Having those different perspectives at the table can help challenge assumptions and anticipate potential problems.
So it's like assembling this dream team of experts from all walks of life to make sure we're really thinking things through.
Exactly, because responsible AI development isn't just about technical skills. It's about understanding the potential impact on humanity, on everyone, and making sure that technology serves us, not the other way around.
I love that. Technology serving humanity. That should be the motto of the entire field of AI. So speaking of serving humanity, Tech Talk Nexus also touched on the concept of AI for good. What was their take on that?
They see AI as having tremendous potential to address some of the biggest challenges facing the world.
Okay, like what?
We're talking climate change, developing new medical treatments, improving education, even expanding access to clean water.
Okay, see, now that's the kind of AI future I can get behind. That's using technology to make a real difference.
Right. And they gave a really cool example. They talked about how AI is being used to analyze satellite imagery to track deforestation in the Amazon rainforest.
Wow, so they're basically using AI to be like a watchdog for the rainforest.
Exactly. This real-time data is helping conservationists identify areas at risk and take action to protect those ecosystems.
That's incredible. It's like having a high-tech guardian angel looking out for the planet.
Exactly. And that's just one example. AI is also being used to develop personalized learning tools for students, create assistive technologies for people with disabilities, even predict and prevent natural disasters.
Wow. It's really inspiring to hear about all the positive things AI is already doing.
It gives you hope, right? Like we really could harness this technology to make a better future.
It does. But of course, with any powerful tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to make sure AI is used responsibly and ethically. And that kind of leads into another thing. Tech Talk Nexus brought up this whole debate about AI regulation. What's their stance on that?
Well, they recognize that it's a super complicated issue with strong arguments on both sides.
Okay, well, walk me through it. What are the main arguments for and against regulating AI?
So those who are pro-regulation say it's crucial to set clear rules and standards for how AI is developed and used.
Okay, to prevent it from being used in harmful ways.
Exactly. They believe that regulation can help reduce risks, protect people from harm, and make sure AI is used responsibly. They talk about the need to safeguard against things like bias, discrimination, and potential job losses.
So they're kind of like the referees, making sure everyone's playing by the rules and the game is fair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, those who are against strict regulation worry that it could stifle innovation and slow down the development of AI applications that could actually be really beneficial.
They're worried that too much regulation will just create roadblocks for everyone.
Right, and they're concerned about over-regulation, creating barriers to entry, making it harder for smaller companies to compete.
So it's a balancing act between protecting people and allowing for progress.
Exactly, and finding that balance is really tricky. There are valid points on both sides. Tech Talk Nexus didn't really say definitively whether they're for or against regulation, but they emphasized how important it is to have these discussions and for policymakers, tech leaders, ethicists, and everyday people to work together.
It sounds like we need all hands on deck to figure this out.
Absolutely. It's not as simple as saying regulation is good or regulation is bad. It's about having thoughtful conversations, considering different viewpoints, and ultimately working together to create a future where AI benefits everyone.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about bias, unintended consequences, the potential for AI to be used for good, the regulation debate. Is there anything else we need to cover?
Well, there's one more thing that Tech Talk Nexus brought up. They touched on the idea of AI rights, which is a pretty wild concept.
AI rights. Okay, now we're really getting into uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Are we talking about robots demanding equal pay and paid time off?
Not quite yet, but it is something that's being discussed more and more in philosophy and ethics circles.
Really?
As AI gets more advanced, capable of learning, adapting, even maybe showing something like emotions.
Okay, you're losing me a little bit. Robots having emotions.
Well, it depends on how you define emotions, right? But as AI systems become more complex, it raises questions about their moral status, like, do they deserve any rights or special considerations?
Wow, that is a big question. I mean, we haven't even fully figured out all the rights of humans, and now we're talking about robot rights.
It's a lot to unpack. Some people say AI is just a tool created by humans, so it doesn't deserve the same rights as living beings.
Right, it's like saying your toaster deserves rights.
Right. But then others say that if AI becomes conscious, if it achieves a certain level of sentience, then we do have an obligation to treat it with respect.
So it all comes back to that age-old question. What does it mean to be human? And how do we define consciousness? Those are questions philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries.
Exactly. And now, with AI advancing so rapidly, those questions are becoming more and more relevant.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around. But it's pretty amazing to think about how AI is making us rethink some of our most fundamental beliefs.
And there's still so much more to explore. Tech Talk Nexus really covered a lot, and it's obvious that AI is going to keep sparking debate. It makes you think about who we are as humans and what kind of future we want.
It's definitely a lot to absorb, but in a good way, you know? It's like this whole episode has opened my mind to these amazing possibilities, ones that are exciting, but maybe a little intimidating too.
Right. It's about embracing those aha moments.
Exactly. But speaking of challenging assumptions, what about the future of AI? What did Tech Talk Nexus have to say about that? Did they go with the whole robots taking over thing? Because I think I've had enough of that for one day.
Actually, they went in a totally different direction. They said the real future of AI might not be about creating machines that think like us, but about designing systems that work with us, that enhance our abilities.
So it's more about collaboration than competition. Instead of trying to build AI that can do what humans do, we should focus on AI that helps us do those things even better.
Exactly. They believe the real magic happens when AI helps us analyze massive amounts of information, spot patterns, make connections, things that would take us forever to do on our own.
Okay, that's a future I can get behind. It's like having this superpowered partner in crime helping us solve problems in ways we never could before.
Exactly. Imagine doctors using AI to diagnose illnesses way more accurately, or architects designing buildings that are beautiful and good for the environment, or teachers personalizing lessons for each student.
It's like AI could help us take everything we've already accomplished as humans and take it to a whole new level.
Exactly. I think Tech Talk Nexus did a great job of laying out both the challenges and the opportunities we're facing as we learn more about what AI can do.
They really got the wheels turning. But that's what a good deep dive is all about, right? It's not just about getting answers, it's about asking the right questions.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, I want to thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoy a good AI discussion.
And to everyone listening, don't forget to check out the show notes for links to that Tech Talk Nexus episode we discussed, plus some additional resources if you want to learn more. Until next time, keep exploring, keep those brains buzzing, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.